Hello, Social Work 306 class. My name is Adrienne Burrell, and today I will be presenting my contribution presentation on Miss Anita Rose WIlliams. She has done influential work with child welfare and Catholic organizations in and throughout Baltimore and surrounding Maryland cities. Her contribution began in the early 1900s. Anita Rose WIlliams was the first African American Catholic social worker in the United States. Not only that, but she was the first Black supervisor employed through an agency in Baltimore, Maryland. She was born in 1891 but began her career in the 1900s. Although she did not have formal education, she was still a successful social worker. Mrs. Williams attended segregated schools throughout most of her childhood in Maryland, but she never got a high school diploma. But she did happen to receive special permission to partake in sociology courses at Johns Hopkins University and Loyola College. This would be the start of her social work career and learning experience. Her spark of interest in social work began when she was helping a wealthy philanthropist. She was responsible for coordinating and helping with volunteering at multiple agencies around Baltimore. This gave her the opportunity to discover her calling and what social work was all about. In the early 1900s, she started working for the Colored Young Women's Christian Association. The primary goal of the organization was for the women to fulfill their evangelical duties to the community. It was established in 1896 by upper-class Black women. It was a group that supported local sisters who lived in Baltimore City. In 1912, she became one of the founding members of the Interracial Interrace Committee in Baltimore City. The committee's mission was to find solutions to the several issues concerning race relations in the city. Anita was dedicated to making colored Americans feel more welcome and comfortable where they were from. At this time, there was still a lot of racial tension in Baltimore City and surrounding areas. In 1921, she began organizing the organization called Women of the Four African American Parishes. This organization focused on working with child welfare, financial assistance, and recreational activities, and also goal orientation. The church gave permission to the organization to do these activities, and they continued until the Great Depression began. In 1922, she began her career throughout the Associated Catholic Charities Incorporation. More specifically, she was the caseworker at St. Vincent de Paul Society. The organization provided care for more than 160,000 people per year. They served over 250,000 meals per year to the poor and operate 80 charitable service programs in Baltimore City. The mission of the Association Catholic Charities was to provide healing and care to vulnerable children and adults in Maryland. They also wanted to educate on social awareness and advocate for public policy. The organization helped people of all faiths, but mainly children, elderly, poor, and disabled. A few examples of services include behavioral health services, senior housing, and family support services. Only a year later, in 1923, she was transferred to St. Mary's County to work for the new Bureau of Catholic Charities. She was commended for her hard work in a national meeting of directors for the Catholic Charities. This resulted in Catholic Charities hiring Black social workers all across the country. This was a huge accomplishment for Black women around the world. In September of 1933, during the midst of the Great Depression, Anita Williams was barred from the Catholic Charities to help get the Baltimore Emergency Relief Commission established. FERA's main goal was to alleviate unemployment. They provided jobs for more than 20 million people. They also helped those who lacked food during the Great Depression. Miss Williams and 4 other social workers decided to organize District 11 of the Baltimore Emergency Relief Commission. She became the first African American supervisor that was employed by a social agency in Baltimore, Maryland. She also worked with this commission for 3 years. In 1936, the commission decided to disband. Following her time at the Baltimore Relief Commission, she returned to the Catholic Charities Incorporation and worked there until she retired in 1958. Miss Anita impacted many African Americans to become social workers or even get a career in general. Her hard work paid off, and many Blacks were hired based off what the organization had seen from her as an individual. Although she retired from the Catholic Charities, she still remained active in the community. Over the years, she was involved in numerous charity and welfare organizations to help the vulnerable populations in Baltimore. Not only was she a member, she was one of the founders for many of these charities she dedicated her time to. In addition to being a founder and member for many charities, she served on a number of health, child welfare, and human relations boards. Being involved and active in the city of Baltimore was important to Miss Williams. She wanted to make sure those whose needs were not met had someone to help them and care for them when they needed it the most. Miss Williams was a board member for the Barrett Training School for Girls. Miss Williams made such a contribution for the girls that they decided to name a building in Glen Burnie, Maryland in her honor. However, that building was later taken down when the schools closed. However, in Reisterstown, Maryland, the Montrose School for Girls named a dormitory in Mrs. Williams' honor. She served as a key member on the board for the Barrett and Montrose School for 19 years. The only reason she did not continue helping young girls was because the schools closed down in the mid-90s. In addition, she was a board member for the Ladies' Auxiliary at St. Mary's Home for the Aged. She received many awards for her charitable and selfless work in the city of Baltimore and surrounding Maryland areas. Miss Williams was rewarded an honorary degree as a Doctor of Humane Letters from Loyola College. In addition, she received a certificate of appreciation by the Baltimore chapter of the American Council of Human Rights. Miss Williams was recognized as the first Black woman on the State Council of Social Workers. She was also the first Catholic that was engaged in the Baltimore Negro Young Women's Christian Association. Miss Williams was the first woman on the board for the Providence Hospital that used to be in Baltimore, Maryland. She also served for the Stella Maris Hospice, which is a nonprofit long-term facility. She did this until her own health began to decrease. Anita Rose WIlliams was very committed to the city of Baltimore and surrounding cities. She made a huge contribution for Catholics and Black women during this time. Her legacy lives on today and gives social workers standards to live up to. The most significant thing about Miss Williams is that she was the first Black Catholic social worker in the United States. Her commitment and love of helping others shows through the numerous awards she has received over the years.